I call this meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. We do have an agenda in front of us.
I move adoption of the agenda as provided.
All those in favor of the agenda that has been presented, please vote by saying yes. Yes. We will follow the agenda as it has been presented. Is Jennifer joining us online there?
I think she'll join us in progress.
Thank you. Okay. And Linda will be joining us shortly. Recognition of the audience. No audience members signed up to address the board tonight, but welcome to those of you who have joined us in the audience, as well as those of you who are watching us on television. It sounds like I also hear a buzz. Jennifer, did you just join us?
I did. I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Agenda has been approved, and we are moving on now to staff reports. So FEA report, we have a replacement for David tonight. So if you want to introduce yourself, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, I'm Laura Haugen Christensen. I'm at Davies High School. I teach English. Dave, I'm not sure why. I'm sure he'll get a note from somebody, is unable to be here, so I'm filling in. Dave said there's no speech for me to deliver. I could just say what I want to say, which made me laugh because I think he forgets who I am and what today is. Maybe you guys too. It is Leo Tolstoy's 186th birthday. So I thought maybe I could read War and Peace for you. Okay. No report really. I'm just here to represent.
Thank you so much. Enrollment update. Dr. Gross?
Yes, thank you very much. At your table, we've provided you a one-page handout of the current enrollment in the Fargo Public Schools. There are 3 sets of data on that handout. The first is data by grade level, so you can see going from left to right are those grade levels K through 12, and then also you can see by building. Those sets of data, or that number, show a total of 11,136 students, just so you can get a snapshot of where we're at. We also then provided you the second set of data. That's the colored cells. That's a comparison to a similar point in time last year to this year. So you can see the top row is last year, approximately the same time. The number of students by grade level, below that is the current number. And then the third row there is the plus or minus. So you can see by each of those grade levels. And then the fourth row is the cohort data. Basically what that is taking a grade level, for example, kindergarten. And in the case of 2013, there were 919 kindergarten students at this time. Comparing that to this year's first graders, thinking they would move as a cohort group to the next grade level, and you can see that there's a difference of 11 there. And that same set of data goes through the rest of the grade levels. And then finally, what we wanted to provide for you is on the bottom is a quick snapshot of where we are at student to teacher ratio at our elementary buildings. So that was just a quick update for you where we're at with numbers and a comparison to last school year.
Thank you, Dr. Gross. Any questions for Bob?
Madam Chair, Dr. Gross, what's the maximum capacity of Davies?
Since Dr. Schatz was principal there, let me turn it over to him.
1350.
You're thinking the same thing a lot of other board members are, David. Okay. No further questions on the enrollment update. We will move to the next agenda item, and that is Dr. Schatz. He's going to share with us a bit about a new administrative policy.
Thank you, Robin. We have put together a new administrative policy, 4425, foreign exchange students. We put this policy together to reflect what practice has been. We did not have a policy on this topic, so we have put that together for your review. It is a pretty standard type policy for foreign exchange programs. And just a couple of things that I highlighted that I would just point out to you is that you'll see under program contact and application placement, those 2 categories, the first 2 lines in there are very similar. Sponsoring organizations must be on current CSIET list. That is the organization That is the sponsoring accreditation company for different programs that must be on their list in order for us to use them, okay? And then it says organization must contact the high school foreign exchange coordinator directly. So the organization contacts the school, says they have an interested foreign exchange student, works with the coordinator. Once they have clarified that all the paperwork is what it needs to be, that they can accept the student and all those types of things, then at that point, the school engages in the process of accepting the student, making sure we have a good home placement, those types of things. So just wanted to point out that we only work with programs or organizations that are on that current list. As you can see, we right now have a maximum of 4 spaces available at each high school. I contacted the schools today to find out how many we have. We have 3 at South, 3 at North, and we have 0 at Davies. For this year so far, we have 6, and so I don't anticipate any more for the year. Why Davies has 0, you know, one year you could have, some school has 0 and another school could have 5. So it just turned out that way this year. I think that's all the things that I really need to mention. If there's any questions about the policy, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I was just curious, how do we arrive at the number of 4 per high school? And has that been our history?
I think that's just kind of been a standard history that we've had in the past, and so we went with that number. That's what the practice has been, and really, we don't want to get beyond that, because then it becomes more difficult. So 4, I think, is a good number for us to land on.
Not seeing any further questions or comments, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is Dr. Schatz again with the English Language Learners Adequacy Report.
Thank you again. What I'm presenting to you tonight is not a proposal for the board to approve or a proposal for additional monies of any kind. What it is it's a report that gives you a very clear picture of where we're at with our current ELL program in our district and where we would go if we would want to move to a level of what we would call adequacy. Currently, we meet the basic needs of our ELL students. When they come to us, the very basic math and language skills are really what we're working on. And in order to really move to the next level of services and what we would consider adequacy, that's what this proposal is all about. And so it's a document to work with legislators, with other people to inform them of the needs that we have in this area. And so I want to move to part 2, and that would be on page 6. And what you see outlined there are the actual costs that we currently have within our ELL program. So when you look at total costs for last year, we spent $2,328,069. If you look at the federal monies that we get, federal funding specific to ELL, it's about $180,000, $181,000. State formula funding specific to ELL, well, that is the extra weighted funding that we get above and beyond the basic funding for every student, the foundation aid payment. You can see at the different levels, so we get different amounts of money depending on the level of the student. So if you were to take the federal funding and the state funding away, what is the net cost to us, the district, to operate as we currently operate, and that is about that $1.7 million. That's local general fund expenditures, just like we have for any other staffing that we do, okay? So you break that down, you look at total per pupil costs for 786 ELL students above and beyond the basic foundation aid payment in 2013 and 14 was about $3,000. The net cost for the same group, but deducting the state and federal funding, was about $2,200. And so what Bonnie Sanders, the director of the program, myself, working with Connie Nelson, who does a lot of our statistical work and keeps up with all of our reports, we dug into this and we looked at, and I asked Bonnie, I said, what would it be if we were to do something at a level of adequacy? And so that's where we came up with this plan. So as you walk through the plan, you see the different things that would be additional staffing, additional services, those types of things in order to get to that level of adequacy. To give you an example, in Plan A, under number 1, 2 additional ELL social workers. Currently, we have 2 social workers that work with the entire ELL population. So we have 786 students. If you add in the number of students who have exited out of the program and probably still need some services, we're probably at 1,100 students. So you have 2 people working with 1,100 students. We think that 2 additional ELL social workers would get us to that level of 4, which would be similar to what we do with counselors in our schools, about 1 counselor for every 250 students, that type of figure. So as we went through, that's the type of rationale that we looked at, is what do we do for other scenarios in our special ed groups, in our regular student groups, when we do staffing, and what would that mean? So the rationale you can see behind that. As you go through and look, the second thing that we really struggle with is interpreters and translators. And so someone to help coordinate some of that at 0.25 FTE to help coordinate those services is something we don't currently have. That would obviously be something that would be part of someone else's job that's already hired, but that 0.25 would create that opportunity for some additional support there. The biggest thing that you see in this is changes in teachers at each grade level. Right now, we have about what we think we need at the high school level. We think we're pretty good there. Where we need additional teachers, certified teachers, would be at the middle school level and at the elementary level. Right now, our elementary services basically exist with traveling teachers. They go to a school for 2 hours, they go on to the next school for 2 hours, they go on to the next school for 2 hours. And when you look at the number of people we have, it's really inadequate for what we need. At the middle school level, in order to enhance some of the services that we're providing beyond just those basic language skills and some math skills, the addition of 3.2 ELL teachers would allow us to do that and provide better services for those kids. So that changes in teachers at each grade level. When you look at that total number, that's the biggest part of this whole pie. Support specialists, coaches for traditional teachers. We not only have our ELL students in our core curriculum, but we also have them in a lot of our other curricular areas, in providing support for those traditional classroom teachers who now have ELL students in their classrooms is a huge thing for us to be able to provide. And so we, again, do not have very adequate numbers of people working with that, so 2 people there would really be something that we think is needed. And then the interventionists, just like we do with any other at-risk student, working with our ELL population that are struggling academically and making sure that we've got a process in place to screen that, to find different ways and strategies to help those students. Again, the interventionists would do that kind of work. So when you turn the page and go to the additional items that we had listed in here, summer school is a big part of the ELL program, and providing some additional resources and support there. When you see 14 additional teachers, that's not full-time teachers. That's 4 hours a day for, I believe it's 4 weeks. So it's a smaller, shorter program, but way understaffed for what we really need. And then classroom teachers, professional development. One of the things that we want to do as we move forward is to work on our overall district cultural proficiency. And in order to do that, there needs to be a professional development component to that. So this is an increase in what we currently do for a few teachers, but broadening that out into a larger group. And again, that's another bigger number. And then the mentoring program and coordination for that. We know that mentors make a difference. And if you remember from last year, the African Initiative for Progress has been involved with Davies High School, providing mentors for other ELL students. And if we could enhance what we do as far as a mentoring program for our ELL students, we feel that that would really be helpful. So when you look at total new expenses, if you were to say, okay, we're going to take this plan, put that in place, and according to the cost for our district, that would be about $1.6 million, above and beyond what we currently spend. If you were to take the professional development out and we just threw that in there to show what would it look like for just peer teachers and support to teachers, that type of thing, it's about 1.3 to almost 1.4 million. What goes on beyond that then is all the explanations throughout the report to help clarify the needs, just like I was talking through. And so if you've read the report, you'll see all those things we justify the reasons why all the way through the report. I think what's really helpful is when you go to the larger spreadsheet, because what that does is it gives you the big picture of what we currently have, and if we were to move to a level of adequacy, what would it be? And I think the middle columns are the ones that I want to bring your attention to. You go right to the top and you look at current ELL students, and we keep using the 786 because that's what we currently have identified. 2 social workers ratio of 1 to 393. If you went proposed ELL staffing to 4, it'd be a ratio of 1 to 196. So what this gives is a picture then of where we currently are, what would it be if we were to add, and then what's the outcome from that, and a lot of its ratios. So I'm excited that we've gotten to this point so that we can at least have something to work with and work off of. And I think that's what's been missing. I've shared this with a few other people. The North Dakota Study Council of Superintendents is also interested in this topic, and I've shared this with them. I'll be giving them an updated draft of it. I wanted to share it with you first before I really started sharing it with others. And some of the other schools like Grand Forks, West Fargo, wanted to see what this was, and so that they could look at possibly doing something similar. So then we can together try to partner with others to get the support that we need, we think, for these programs. I was asked today when I was visiting with Helmut about an article he's doing for the forum. He says, well, it sounds like you're going to be a lobbyist. And I said, I'm not going to be a lobbyist. What I want to do is I want to partner with people to find the resources we need to have adequacy for our programs. And that's really the way I see it. And so in order to partner with somebody, we have to be able to say, what is it? Well, this is it. This is what it is. And so this is the first step, and we'll see where it goes from here. I'm sure we'll adjust it some as we work through it. It's a dynamic document. It's not static. This isn't the end all. But for now, today, as we speak, this is what we think we would need. So I would answer any questions if anybody has any, and try to help you out.
Linda?
Do you know if anything this comprehensive has been laid out for policymakers before? Is this going to be the first time they see this story told in this much detail? I mean, this is great.
I'm not aware of any other document like this. And all the other superintendents and other people that I've talked to have told me there isn't anything, so somebody has it. Bring it forward, but I haven't seen it, so I think it is.
David and then Dinah?
Madam Chair, Dr. Schatz, first of all, thank you for this information. This really doesn't have anything to do with your report. I've always wondered, how do you determine proper placement for these kids? Some of these kids don't even know how old they are.
Right. Well, Bonnie goes through a whole process when students come to us, the director of the program. When they come in, they obviously do the interview with the student and the family, then they do the testing. And you saw in here that there's a certain language test that we give students. And then that helps them with how they place students into the services that they're going to receive. And basically that's it at this point. When it comes to some of the other needs that we have within a community, as far as what do we do when refugees come to us, and help them understand the community they're now in and the cultures and the differences in cultures, is something that is even beyond what we're doing here where we have needs. But that, I see that as a community issue also. And so this here just gets at the essence of the academic side of it. But there's a whole nother story to it and a whole nother side that would take far more resources than I think we could get in order to do that just for us in the school system. But this is a start.
I don't think the public has any idea what kind of task you're facing, because first of all, the only time most of these kids hear English is during the time when they're actually inside of our walls. They use their native tongues outside and even in the hallways when they're talking to each other. So their level of English proficiency is, monumentally lower than the rest. And it's always made me wonder how we're expected to test these kids.
That's the challenge when we do standardized testing. When we have one test that fits all, it doesn't work. They fail miserably, and that's just the reality. We know that in working with our students, it takes 4 to 10 years to acquire mastery of the English language. It depends on if it's a more focused use of language, it takes longer. If it's a more casual use of language, everyday kind of just general conversation, we know that we can get people there 3 years, 4 years. But to have total mastery, typically we see 4 to 10 years.
Dinah?
Not a question, just a comment, I guess. Thank you for all the work that you and the others have put into this, and I hope it brings success from comments with the legislators. But as a board member, I also think this is really helpful to all of us who get questions about this element of our program. And we have a lot more details and things that we can share with patrons and just interested parties. So I think this is really helpful for us too. So thank you.
Rebecca?
Yes, with a total of 27 languages plus English in the Fargo school system, I just think that's amazing. I think it's also a wonderful opportunity. It's a global education opportunity for our children and for our community. So the information in the report is wonderfully amazing, and hopefully it provides lots of information that's needed for the additional funding that not only Fargo needs, but across the state. Thank you.
Jim?
I know this wasn't in the report, but I'm wondering, as part of the broader community discussion, if we could maybe tap into your brain trust and talk about what we really need to do with the adult population too. And obviously, we do try to serve them best as we can with the programming we offer currently. But just like we have all these students in K-12 that need education, we have the parents that come with them that I would think from a community standpoint, the employers and city government, everybody involved, might like to see the same kind of analysis on what we could do better as a community there.
And I think that's the next
Not
step.
that you don't have enough work already.
Yeah, and that's the next step in moving this to a broader discussion amongst the community. But, you know, for our situation here, I think what I told Helmut today was that these students show up on our doorstep, and so it's our duty to work with these students. And so for the needs that these students have, because of the experiences they've had in their lives and the lack of formal education, this is the true these are the true resources we need in order to just get to a level of adequacy. And right now, we're not able to do that. We just aren't. I mean, that's the reality that we're in. So hopefully it's a good start to the conversation.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Schatz, I'm so pleased to see us starting to assemble this information. I remember when I first went to Madison when I was brand new, and Madison had like 17 or 18 flags on the wall. And their principal, he's no longer there, but it was, I was like, wow, that many cultures in this little school. And you mentioned 27 languages, and I'd heard 27 languages in one of our businesses here. Fargo Housing Authority uses 31 interpreters. So just, if I might digress just for a moment and editorialize. Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg recently made some comments alerting Americans about our racial divide that we have in our country, and putting it in front of us in a real eloquent way that we have just this growing racial divide between cultures. As an example, she said the LGBT gay rights movement has eclipsed the civil rights movement, and I found this just interesting as heck. It has eclipsed the civil rights movement, and she said the reason is everybody has gotten to know people in the LGBT community. They've had people come to them and say, I'm in this community, you know me already, you already respect me, or I'm already a brother, or I'm a sister, I'm a family member, or so on, a friend. So here we have this movement just eclipsing this movement, but this is more than racism. It's a challenge to overcome all of the aspects of not knowing each other, and we can call them different things. So what I'd like to see us do, and I'm going to go back to Swanson Health, what they do with their 27 cultures is they bring them together for big social events. And they socialize and interact them to each other. So what I see here is a bunch of numbers, but what I don't know still is, well, what's it mean to be from Bhutan? And what have they left? And or Bosnia, or Somalia, or Sudan, or Darfur. You know, this is a start. I think this is a start, but this is a community-wide issue. It's a broad community issue, just like so many of our health risk surveys, community issues, and so on. So I'm commending us, and if we can somehow or other plant some seeds and put some faces and help introduce us to the Bhutanese people in the community, help introduce kids to each other and parents to each other, neighbors to each other, schools to each other, I just think we'll have done something brilliant. Thank you.
Linda?
Just, thank you. Just remind us of what that group is that met in April, right when we got back, that you attended, and I think we all should mark our calendars. Just remind me what that is again.
Called Building Bridges Conference. It's in April, and Anne Marie registered us for it. And I can't remember, did you get notification? Talk about it. Anyway, those of us who attended should get a reminder about it, and I bet we could find out now what dates they're planning for it. And I did say at the time, it's a fabulous way as board members to get an element of the education that can't get in other ways in such a
Okay, seeing no more comments, I will make a few here. I think this is a very realistic adequacy proposal. I don't think it's a pie in the sky, go for everything we can get. I think it's very easy to understand, so thank you. Regardless of how these students come to us, and I get to work with these students every day at the Boys and Girls Club. Regardless of how they get here, they're our job to take care of and educate them when they get here. And expounding a little bit on what Jeff was alluding to, when you look in their eyes, you realize that they're all kids and they deserve education. So it's our job to educate them when they get here. Fargo has, at this point, I believe, the highest number of ELL students in the state population, but that is gradually moving west, and we see West Fargo and Grand Forks, and now Bismarck last year had 82 students compared to close to our 780 students, but it's starting to move west, and so I see this as a real pioneer report for the state of North Dakota and legislatively, and hopefully we can have everybody in North Dakota understand how important it is to take care of our kids regardless of how they got here, but they're ours now. So, any other questions or comments on this report? Thank you. Very thorough. Okay. Other staff reports. Jeff, do you have anything else to share?
I will just say that the surveys went out this week. We launched everything for the strategic plan, and people are taking them, and we'll see how that goes here over the next 2 weeks, this week and next week. And so anybody out there that is interested in taking a survey to help us with feedback about the Fargo Public Schools regarding a strategic plan that we're going to develop this year, you can go to our website and click on to the survey and take the survey. So encourage people to do that. And once we get to the point where the survey is now completed, then we'll get into that process of going through all that information and figuring out where we go from there. So,
Okay, thank you. Dr. Schatz. Anne-Marie, did you have anything to share from communications?
Not today, thank you.
Okay. Brock.
Nothing, thank you.
Dr. Avery? Bob?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Very good. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda has been moved and seconded. I don't see anybody raising their hands, so all those in favor of the consent agenda as it has been presented, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
President Nelson, is Jennifer on the phone?
Jennifer, are you still with us?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Okay, so just Anne Marie's trying to record the votes properly, and I know that you probably have your phone on mute, so is it safe to assume that since you didn't vote no, that you're voting in favor?
Yes, sorry, yes.
That's okay, okay. Is that good? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, on to the business portion of our agenda. We have a final budget approval, memo number 31. It sounds like our planning chair Jim Johnson is going to take us through this one.
I'll sure try. We obviously approved back in June our preliminary budget for the current year. We are now looking at final approvals so it can get sent over to the county and certified and be put to bed. There are a couple of minor tweaks in some of the funds and maybe one that's a little bit bigger than minor on the general fund. I'll just walk you through them. We have 4 separate funds that we track, a special assessment fund, and there are no changes in this from what we approved back in June, but we did update the actual expenses from last year, which really have nothing to do with the budget that we're approving. The building fund is the second one, and again, there were no changes from the preliminary budget that was brought forward, but again, the actual expenditures have been updated based upon what came through at year end. And you may want to note, if you really analyze the building fund in particular, it looks like we have a huge fund balance right now, but that's because we're about a third of the way through building an elementary school, and we had the funds that came through the bonding of that, and the actual expenditures of those will happen as the project gets to completion. But again, no change to the actual building fund that was approved at our June meeting. The nutritional service fund, again, no changes from our previous approved budget, the preliminary one. And again, we updated the 2013-14 actuals as the year end got closed out. The general fund, there are some minor changes, or maybe more than minor, depending upon the balance in your checking account. We have actually had an increase of $212,743 in revenue projections in this year's current budget. That comes primarily from increased projected rental income and increased or anticipated vocational education reimbursement from the state. On the expenditure side, there were a number of minor alterations based upon the finalization of cabinet trying to figure out where we really spent the money last year versus what we want budgeted for this year. And you'll notice that the expenditures that were tweaked actually equal the increased revenue minus $1 actually. So Brock tried to give himself a $1 cushion on this adjustment. So we're still looking at a 3.1% increase in both projected revenues and expenditures over the prior year. And if you want to go through the detail in particular, you might want to jump back to the general fund page, which I don't have page numbers, but it's the last set of budget numbers. And again, I'll just point out where the changes came in so you can note them as we go through to take action. On the revenue side, we increased by $50,000 what we expect for rental income. We had a $27,744 adjustment on our miscellaneous revenues, and that's really a reflection of what we experienced when we closed out last year, trying to adjust closer to what we think is going to be repeating itself. On the vocational education reimbursement, we believe we'll be receiving about $120,000 more than we had preliminarily budgeted for. And again, that's really a reflection of where we ended last year and looking at what those numbers should replicate to this year. So total general fund adjustments on the revenue side were the $212,744. On the expense side, as you scroll down, if you look at the very last column, you can see areas where there was some tweaking and changing as they finalized what they thought their staffing needs were going to be, and then really compared what they had budgeted the prior year to what was actually spent, and made some minor adjustments along the way to the preliminary budget that we'd already adopted. If you drop down to the very last page of the expenditure side, you'll see that the total adjustments come to $212,743. So basically $1 less than the anticipated revenue increases. So again, we're being presented with a balanced budget for the calendar year 2014-15. With that, I'll open it up to any questions. I guess one other thing to note for those of you that really love studying math, one of the surprises as they closed out last year was that we did not have as many teachers that were eligible to retire and take their longevity payout as we had projected. So that expenditure line was significantly less than had been budgeted for. It looks like that creates a phantom fund balance, and I use the term phantom because all of those employees are still here and they're all still eligible to retire and take their longevity payout. This year is the first year the payout amount is staged down. It will continue to stage down going forward. So we might anticipate that many of them that we thought we might have saw retire last year may be contemplating it at the end of this year. So at the end of the day, even though it gives us a greater fund balance than we'd last looked at, it comes with a greater deferred liability as well. That balances the two out. But I'll turn it over to questions, and Brock, I'll probably lean on you if they get too difficult for me.
Linda?
Thank you. Jim, the longevity payout, is that something that only shows up on the balance sheet, or is that one of these, I know it's not 117 PTO payout or unused personal leave. Where, is there a line item for that?
Yeah, there is. You know off the top of your head the line item, Brock?
I do. Members of the board, Linda, it falls under the employee benefits section, and it's down under code 293, employer paid annuity.
Okay, there it is.
And, you know, we budgeted a little over 2 million. The $811 isn't what was expended. We actually had a number of payouts for retirements, and then we made the adjustment on the eligibility. So we had a number of them that we paid out, just under $2 million in total. Then we had about a $1.8 million adjustment that we have to book as a current liability that then affects the balance sheet going forward, but you have to get it booked as a current liability. So it would appear we only paid $811. That's actually not true.
John?
Madam President, Jim, I'm just curious, when you say increased rental income, what do you mean rental income? Help me, I know we have some rental properties, or what do we mean rental income?
We get rental income from a number of different sources. People might want to rent
A room
gym
or-
space, a room. So it's anytime, we have actually administrative policy. There are some users of our facilities that don't have to pay rent. PTA, for instance, doesn't rent the cafeteria to have a meeting, but there are other users that do pay rent. So it could be for a swimming pool, it could be for a gym, it could be for a classroom, a theater, any of the facilities that are available to be rented.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking a 50,000. You're not talking a $50,000 increase here. It's way less than that.
Actually, I think the rental income went up by 50,000.
I'm not seeing that.
Members of the board, John, it is under local revenue, object code 1910, rental income. So we had preliminarily planned for 100,000, and for all the things that Jim had mentioned. And really, if you recall, we brought to you some time ago a advised facility use agreement, and part of that rental then we'll see a full year's worth of rental income in that regard.
Right here.
Thank you, I got on the right page now.
Literally. Further questions for Jim, the planning committee, or Brock's department?
Seeing none, I'm going to move that we approve the finalized budgets for 2014-15 for the Special Assessment Fund, the Building Fund, Nutritional Service Fund, and the General Fund.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Was that a yes, Jennifer? I I do want to comment a little bit. So Brock, we deal with a lot of dollars in our district, so I'm going to put your toes to the fire. Gulp. What percentage were we off on revenues and expenses? I mean, it was quite small, outside of the dollar difference on the revenues, but I just want to underscore what a great job you and your team do.
Members of the board, Robin, thank you, and I would really shift a lot of that to my team. I've got a great budget team that works very closely with the district. Our revenues and expenditures come in within 1%, inside of 1%. Last year, I think our revenue line actually came in right at about 0.5% of projection. And I understand that with an organization our size, 0.5% is $700,000 because a small percentage of a big number is still a big number. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, I don't know what the plus and minus is in the business world, but I feel pretty good about being within 0.5%, and generally, it's in our favor. So I'm not coming to you to say we missed it by 0.5% and we're short $600,000. So that's been good, and I think that's a credit really to the entire district. So thank you.
Thank you for your work. Thank you, planning team. Okay, I don't see any further questions or comments, so since this is such a major issue for the board to approve, one of the bigger issues that we have, I would ask for a roll call vote. Anne Marie?
Benson,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Goldenberg. Johnson,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes. Motion unanimously carries. Thank you. On to our next item, the operational plan, another major undertaking. Dr. Schatz, would you like to lead us through that?
Yes, thank you again. And here we are with our second reading of our operational plan. We presented this to you at our last board meeting. There was one suggestion made by board members, Board Member Johnson, on page 7, and we made that adjustment to the North Dakota State Standards. It's the second item down. Other than that, we made no further adjustments to the plan. As I said last time, we are already on our way in working on this plan, and we would ask for your approval tonight.
Linda?
Move to approve the 2014-15 operational plan.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Are you sure you're ready for this vote? Okay, okay, I bet you are. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to approve the operational plan for 2014-2015, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Good luck. On to our governing policies. We have a monitoring document in front of us. It looks like 8 board members did get a chance to fill that out. There was substantial compliance across the board. There were a couple comments. Anybody would, if they would like to bring those forth to the board at this point, I would invite that discussion. Fairly self-explanatory within the document. Okay. Well, with that said and no feedback, I would entertain a motion to accept the monitoring report. Jim, first? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Linda, question?
Just when you were saying that the comments were pretty self-explanatory, I did suggest in my comment an issue to be sent to governance. I don't know if the board needs to
Go ahead.
give that their blessing, but the old GP one again.
Okay. What I would recommend, Anne Marie, if you could move that to the next governance agenda. You're spot on. I think that's been recommended a couple years in a row. So, okay. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, any other questions? I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor to accept the governance policy monitoring document, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Okay, we're good to go. I think we'll continue on here. We're 45 minutes into it. Let's talk about the appointment of NDSBA convention delegates. We have heard from the majority of the board. Anne Marie, would you like to fill us in on where we're at?
All board members do plan to be at the convention. Paul's not sure how long he'll be able to stay on Friday, but everybody does plan to get there.
Okay. Typically, they shifted the days a little bit, but on Friday is when the delegates will be voting for the motions on the floor that the North Dakota State School Boards brings to us. And so, as a district, we are allotted 5 votes. Am I right, Jim? And an alternate. So, looks like everybody will be here, which is fabulous. Thank you. Who in the room or on the phone would be willing to serve as a delegate to move past that? And we can just take a raise of hands. Got Linda, Dinah, Rebecca, John. You can't be, Jim, can you? Oh, can you? You're on the state board? Okay. And you can add me into there too, so there's,
I would, Robin.
okay. Need 5? Okay, well, we've got 5. Jennifer, would you like to be an alternate?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Might I suggest you actually list all of us as alternates?
I do. I put everybody down in case something happens, so. Is it Jim or Robin that's going to be an actual delegate? Robin, okay.
Thank you. We're good. And that doesn't need an official motion, it's just okay. Okay. Any other questions on the North Dakota School Boards Association meeting or suggestions by Jim, who's also on that board? John?
Are they, Madam President, are they past taking suggestions for topics? I know we all fill in, but is that all passed?
It's pretty well finalized, but you never know. What do you have in mind?
Well, every year I write the same thing, and I'd like to see us put some focus on how we can build and enhance the relationship with our staff, especially our teachers. When I see like school board associations meetings, sometimes we're talking like, it's almost like us and them. And I've always felt that we really need to have more getting us all on the same page. And I think that should be us as bosses and board members. That's a priority, to have a good morale, good happy employees, good satisfied, good product. That's just my thought, and I never get anywhere with it, but it's.
John, have you ever attended the negotiation seminar?
I have.
Because that's really usually where this topic gets addressed.
Well, I'll continue. I remember when we had our attorney, who's no longer there, and we had our brochure with 8 different topics for negotiations, and we were wrapping up the seminar. And he's saying, does anybody have any questions? And I'm going, well, you left one whole entire chapter out of this. He said, what do you mean? I said, you didn't even talk about collaboration. There's a good reason, he basically said. I go, well, there you go. But yeah, I attended it, and I felt that was probably teaching me that we need to foster our relationships so that we're not like that.
I think your point is well taken by the North Dakota School Board.
Anyway,
member
that's
here.
just if we could advance that to a topic.
Okay, good feedback. All right, well, let's move through with committee liaison and correspondence reports. I believe we started this side. Donna, would you like to?
Sure. We had had two communications, believe it or not, since the last board meeting. You all will have gotten an email about the high school engagement that we're going to repeat, similar to what we did last year. So you all have gotten an email telling you what your assigned schools are. So if you haven't already, or if your principal hasn't already contacted you, you're welcome to do so. We encourage everyone to arrange it for sometime in October or November so that we can debrief together December 9th meeting. This year we decided that it would be helpful for board members to have some sort of document to track of their experience so that when it comes time to debrief, you have notes that you remember. So we created a reflection sheet for everyone, just with some basic information for you to help you on the day that you go to your schools to write stuff. And we would ask that you submit those once you're done to Anne Marie, and then she'll compile them as part of a report to share amongst ourselves. And then when those of us who do it the first week won't forget by the time December 9th rolls around what our experience was. The other thing we discussed was, because it was so successful at the high school level, we had discussion about expanding it to the elementary or middle school. And what we decided on for this year was to expand to the elementary level. And Rachel suggested that there are elementary school strategists in every elementary building, and that they would be the right person to liaison or a board member to get an experience at the elementary level that shows what goes on in an everyday elementary day, just like we're trying to see at the high school level. So we thought that it would be appropriate if board members could do that in the second half of the year. And so if you are able to do that, we're asking just, one elementary building. If you could sign up with Anne Marie prior to January 27th, we'll remind you closer to the time. And then between Anne Marie and Rachel, they will connect you with the appropriate strategist in an elementary building to arrange a suitable experience at an elementary building. Now, we know that at least 4 board members have multiple elementary buildings, so if your time or interest allows you to do more than one, or for some reason you want to get that one done this fall rather than waiting till January, just let Anne Marie know and we'll facilitate that. So we want to make this as easy as possible for everyone so that everyone has a good experience and does it when they have the time for it, as opposed to have to do it in a short period of time. But our request would be that you sign up by January 27th and do it in February, March, or April so that we can debrief at the April 28th meeting, and again, fill out the same reflection sheet to keep track of your experience at the elementary level. That's it. We discussed our goals, and you've basically heard the major goal, which is student engagement. And at this time, until the board directs the communication else, that's basically our agenda for the time being. Our regular meetings will be the second Monday of the month at noon, but not necessarily every month, dependent on what's happening in our planning stages. I attended the Claire Barton Hawthorne PTA last week to introduce myself. What a nice crowd they had on their first meeting. And I will be at the ice cream social on the 18th. I think several other board members will be there. And I also attended the United Way event today sat with Jeff and John Nelson. And I just wanted to say, John, if you didn't know, John Nelson is the staff person in the district who is the chair, whatever his title is, of the United Way. And I asked him afterwards whether they ever approach board members for contributions under the auspices of the district. And he said it's been done once, but the understanding is that, of course, many board members have their own outside employers and may choose to donate under that umbrella. But I think there are several who might, who don't have that opportunity and who would like to donate under the umbrella of FPS. So I suggested that he send a letter or whatever he sends to the rest of the staff when he send it to the board. No obligation. The understanding is, of course, you may have other, but just so you know where that came from, that I think it's appropriate for us. Oh, and that's it.
Thanks, Communications, too. I know that it seems like a big commitment to do the student engagements, but it is so worth it when you go do it. It was probably one of the more enlightening pieces I've had as a board member. So thanks for organizing those. Linda?
Thank you. Mary Ann is canvassing the negotiations committee for a meeting that will come up next month, so nothing to report on that yet. As far as my liaison, the Community Development Committee did not meet this last time, so they'll be meeting. And I'm in the process of lining up my engagement at Woodrow and visits to the two elementary schools, so I'll have more to report next time. But between now and our next meeting, the 3 soloists that are coming in for the symphony, we're working at getting those out in the those folks out in the schools to perform for some of our kids. So.
David? Okay, thank you. Jennifer, you're next in the circle. Do you have anything to share for committee and liaison reports?
The only thing is that I plan on attending both the PTA meeting and the staff meeting at Lincoln Elementary in October. So I'll have more to report after that.
Very good, thank you. Rebecca?
All right, I thought I'd reiterate a little bit about what Dr. Schatz shared with us in the board focus in regard to the ad hoc committee and the strategic plan. Of course, we all received that information, and I'm sure we've all read it, but for any of the public, they have an opportunity to learn a little bit more. And a question that I have is in regard to, I know the survey was just launched yesterday. Are we under the assumption that there have been no glitches in regard to people being able to access the information?
No glitches that we know of.
Well, that's great. In my email basket, I think I have received information about the survey at least 3 ways. Middle school and elementary school being 2 of them, so that's exciting. And I think it's important that community members know that it will not take long to participate in the survey, and so we really, really encourage the participation. And I know that as board members, we are all free to forward that survey on to friends, family members, coworkers, where we may have contacts of individuals that live within the Fargo School District. Of course, we don't know if many of them live in the district or not, but live in the city of Fargo, so I would assume that there obviously must be ways also where if people receive that survey from more than one person, and a person has already completed the survey, I would imagine that there would be, it's set up so that the system would know that a person has already completed the survey. Is that correct?
We rely on the fact that people are going to complete it once.
So vote early and vote often does not apply in this case.
That's right. Well, it's the way to get more feedback.
It might. Fair
But
enough.
I know that the district has done a good job. Anne Marie has put together a very concrete plan for the initial launch. So I checked 2 Area Voices, and I'm personally not on Twitter, but Area Voices and Facebook and the Fargo Public Schools website, the links are there. And then I did notice too the special edition of Journey and School Talk. So the survey is being distributed and the link is there. And I just want to encourage folks to, like I said, forward it on. And we all received the questions too prior to them being released. So we should be familiar with those. If we have any questions, I think probably the best folks to contact would be Dr. Schatz or Anne Marie, but I'm happy to take questions also, but it seems like until the survey is complete, it's in their hands right now. And then I believe our next meeting is September 19th for the ad hoc committee once that survey has been completed and analyzed.
That's correct.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. John?
There's talk that we may reschedule the GAC meeting, so unless you get formally noticed that it's the 3rd Wednesday, I'm hearing rumblings that it might be in October from members that request is forwarded, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Jim?
A couple of things. I had lunch with Troy Cody, and he kind of laid out what his objectives and plans for Davies were for the coming year, and we talked about opportunities for him to put me to work out there. Kind of an update on state GAC. We have 2 additional resolutions that have now been written. One has been acted on, one is probably being acted on as we sit here electronically. We did formally adopt one that basically takes the position that the State School Board Association supports the North Dakota state standards, anticipating that that will probably be a topic legislatively that will come to the forefront. And there is a resolution currently being reviewed by state GAC members regarding TFFR, and I would anticipate sometime either today or tomorrow, everybody will have hopefully had a chance to read it, ask any questions, or vote online, and most likely that'll get approved, but it hasn't been yet. And if it does, then that too will be going to our association at the fall meeting. Planning has not met since our last time, and at this point in time, I believe it'll be the first Friday in October unless staff informs me they need us before then.
Very good. I did pass around my report, lots of board-specific events, but just remind everybody, homecoming season is upon us, so the silliness has begun, not only at my household, but I would guess other high schools across the district. Dinah talked about the ice cream social at Hawthorne. Thank you to everyone who replied to the North Dakota School Boards Association Convention. It should be a very worthwhile time. Attendee list has been provided, so I encourage you to coordinate rides to save on mileage. And
Thursday night,
Thursday?
unless you want to do it on Wednesday.
Okay. NSBA, Anne Marie's only heard from a couple people, so if you could get your intentions to her, that would be appreciated as well. And she also sent out a request about the City Parks and Schools joint meeting. November 5th is on the consideration table right now, so please get to her as soon as possible. As soon as she has a quorum, she will schedule that with, or confirm that with some of the organizing entity is the city this time? Right.
Yep, it will be organized by the city or hosted by the city this time.
Very good, very good. Just a friendly reminder and a heads up, save an extra 5 to 10 minutes. On Friday, Anne Marie will be sending out governance policy monitoring reports 4, 5, 9, and 10. Would love to see everybody participate in those. As far as my liaison and committee reports, I have the luxury in my own job of visiting elementary schools on a very regular basis, so I did get to be in 8 elementary schools in the last week. Sometimes under duress. No, it was all good. It was all good. The schools look great. We were in some that the air condition was reinstalled, and everything is fabulous and very clean and friendly, and I cannot say enough about how helpful the FPS staff has been to extracurricular and after-school programs. They have been very accommodating. Working on my South Liaison visit, and third, I, too, like Dinah, and some of the team members attended the United Way event today, and a lot of their focus, one of their major 3 focuses is on education, but what I've heard continuously echoed at the board level here is the school district can't do it all. Educating our students, not just academically, but socially, and navigating society is a community job. So the more we link with organizations such as that and others, I think it will be best for our students and our community in the long run. So do you agree? That was part of the message today at United Way? Yeah, so. Okay, well with that, that's the end of my report. Any other reports this evening? Okay. Our next regular meeting date is Tuesday, September 23rd. I want to thank those of us in our audience, audience members and former board members. Thank you for joining us. We will move on to debriefing. No feedback at this point? Okay, with that, we will call this meeting of the Fargo School Board to close.